Hi there, everybody. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. Jim Farfaglia is our guest. Jim is an author. This is his second book, and we're going to be talking about the book. It's about the Nestle company, and it was a huge company out west of here, about 90 miles to the west, if I'm not mistaken. Jim, good to see you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
Nestle company, big name.
Yes.
And they had a plant in Fulton, yes?
Yes, that's the book is about the Fulton plant. It was the first Nestle plant in the United States, which is why I thought it would be a good topic to write about.
What was the size of the plant out there, Jim?
In its heyday, it was a 24-acre facility, 60 buildings. So it was a large capacity.
And they made a variety of products, including two of which I'm familiar with, Nestle's Crunch Bars and Nestle Quick, the chocolate milk, yeah?
Right. In fact, they were invented at that Fulton factory, Joe. And that was part of the history that I wanted to collect in this book, is that they had a research department, which is kind of unusual for food factories, but they had a lab set up and they would do tests. And over a number of years, they came up with products like the Quick and the Crunch Bar, but also Nestle Toll House morsels. They didn't invent the chocolate chip cookie, but they did perfect the morsel.
How many people were employed up there, Jim?
Again, in its heyday, 1,700. For decades, it was 1,500. It's one of the largest factories in our area.
What remains up there now?
Well, nothing. Of the factory, you mean? Yeah, no. Long story. The Nestle closed in 2003 in Fulton. And for several years, the city tried to attract another chocolate-making company to come in and take over, and we're not able to do that. So then the sad decision became to tear those buildings down, which were almost 100 years old by that time, because the factory opened in the 1900. So they've torn those buildings down and are now recreating retail areas and things.
How close to Fulton do you live, Jim?
I'm in Fulton.
I
live in the city.
Okay.
Yep.
They say that when the factory was going full guns, that you could smell it throughout the community, yes?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, I start and end the book with that, the reason behind that and the stories behind that. Here's a funny story. I interview a lot of people for my books, Joe, and I interviewed probably 70 people, most of who were Fultonians, like me, knew that I grew up in Fulton, and they were so excited to tell me that our city smelled like chocolate, even though they knew I knew it. But it was pretty phenomenal. All through the city, and even in the outskirt areas, you could smell it.
Sometimes in our city, over in West Utica, you can smell beer.
Yeah, same idea, but who doesn't love the smell of chocolate, right?
The Nestle company, Nestle is a name.
Yes.
Of the founder. Talk about him.
Henry Nestle. German-born.
So I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. It's Nestle, not Nestle?
Well, I'm not sure of the Swiss pronunciation, but okay. I say Nestle. But born in Germany and then raised in Switzerland, we're talking the mid-1800s. He was a pharmacist, a chemist. And at that time in Europe, there was a high infant mortality rate. 1 in 5 children were dying from poor nutrition. And several people were trying to create something that would supplement mother's milk. And Henry Nestle was one of the first to develop an infant formula that began saving the lives of children. Phenomenal success in Europe. So by the late 1800s, by that time, Henry Nestle had sold his name and the rights to a company, and he retired. But Nestle Corporation wanted to expand to the United States. So they looked for a place in the eastern United States, which was where most of the population was at the time, to build this milk production factory. And Fulton, a lot of central New York, is known for its dairy. Not only quantity, but quality, high-quality milk. So that's why they chose Fulton as the site of their first factory.
How humbly did they start off?
You mean size of the factory?
Yeah.
Or, let's see, I have that in the book. The first building that they put up was less than the size of a football field. And that was their full production. And so we have a picture here I see of, that's on the main street, one of the main buildings. In fact, those buildings that you're seeing there are among the first. That was among the first buildings that were built right along that main thoroughfare. If people have been through Fulton, they'll know what I'm talking about.
And the picture that shot up there for a second was Mr. Nessel, Henry Nessel?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Did he live a long life?
Well, I think he lived maybe into his 70s, but he, interestingly enough, he had had enough of the business, and the company offered him to have stock.
There's Mr. Nessel.
Yeah, there he is again. They offered him some stock in the company. He gave up all rights, but continued on with the family name and the logo, which I'm not sure if we'll have a picture of the logo today, but people who know Nestle products know that bird's nest with the birds. That was his family coat of arms, and he gave that to the company to use too.
Was he a family man himself?
Oh yeah, very strong family man. In fact, that is another strong aspect of the Fulton factory. Anybody who worked there, and most of the people I interviewed were former employees, told me that it was like a family to work there. And I tried to imagine a company with 1,500 employees feeling like a family, but somehow the powers that be, the managers, the directors, the Nestle company from Switzerland itself, really valued family and made it a part of their work experience there.
Where are they based, if anywhere, in the United States anymore, Jim?
Well, they were in California for many years. They just moved, and I apologize, I don't know where that is. I think it's back more on the East Coast. But they were in White Plains, New York during most of the heyday from Fulton, and then moved to California. And if you're following Nestle history now, Nestle is out of the chocolate making business. They do a lot of bottled water, carnation milk products, dog food, but they don't make a lot of chocolate anymore. That was another reason to write this book, because a lot of that Nestle history is no longer.
Yeah, and this is your second book.
It's actually my fourth book.
Fourth?
But the second time I've been on your show.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I wrote a book on the Blizzard of '66.
That's why you
had me
came
against.
on.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I've also written about the muck farms of Oswego County, which I don't know if your viewers are familiar, but muck is a very organic type of soil that grows rich produce.
There's some of that muck up around Rome.
Absolutely, yeah. So I wrote a book on that, and then I also wrote about a search and rescue team that was founded in Fulton. So I like to write about local history.
Yeah, and this is since you've retired, you work for the Fulton County?
Oswego County.
Oswego County.
Yeah, in youth programming, and ran a camp called Camp Hollis. And when I took early retirement from that job and then started writing after that.
So you're writing full-time now?
Yep.
And you were telling me before the show you're working on a book about Camp Hollis.
Yeah. A writer is never happy if they're not writing. And so I knew I wanted to write the full history of Camp Hollis, which technically started in 1946, but the roots of it go back to the 1920s. I won't get into that now, but it has served youth for over 75 years.
Yeah. Well, when you get that book done, give us a call and we'll have you on. We'll talk about that.
Thank you.
Jim Farfaglia is our guest. We're talking about his book about the Nestle Company up in Fulton, all of its history. We got more pictures to show you. Short break, right back.